Hello and welcome back to Bad for Baseball, the baddest baseball podcast on the internet, presented to you by Betway. Guys, we have a World Series champion. Your 2024 World Series champions are the Los Angeles Dodgers. Big congratulations to Shohei Ohtani winning his first ring, Freddie Freeman winning the MVP and also winning his second ring, and Mookie Betts with his third. There's MVPs, there's accolades all over that Dodgers team. However, on the other side of things, you got the Yankees, who are in shambles right now. They could be losing a lot of good players on their team. They got a lot of question marks as free agency after missing out on the World Series ring. And speaking of free agency, we're going to get into all that and more with some upcoming dates that you got to be looking out for, and we're going to be covering here on Bad for Baseball. Before we get into it, though, Nick, how you doing this fine morning?
Well, I'll be honest, folks. I am a little tired because I was up late watching what was an incredible baseball game.
Just phenomenal.
I mean, you look at the series, right, and you see that big 4-1 Dodgers, and you think, okay, they dominated the entire time. It was a close series, right, and something that I think the scoreboard doesn't really do justice to. And that game, especially last night, holy crap, like, the amount of swings that were going on, like, you know, and when I mean swings, not, you know, swinging the bat, like, just swings and win probability in every single thing that was happening. It was so freaking major, folks. Like, it really did feel like every single strike, every single ball was critical. So, yeah, that game was just incredible as a whole, man. Like, I think we can really diagnose, or I guess, like, dive deep into every single inning there, honestly, because it felt like it felt like a marathon, and of course the LA Dodgers came out on top in the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, they started off the game like they were down by 3 runs. Aaron Judge with the first inning bomb, and like that sent Yankee Stadium into a frenzy. They ended up scoring 3 in that inning. Like, just a phenomenal, you know, outburst that they needed. They hadn't scored in the first inning all series, right? And they finally did it. Then they go on attack another one in the second, another one in the third, and it felt like by the 5th it was all over. And then that 5th inning that happened, man. That 5th inning was probably some of the worst baseball I've ever seen, and it honestly, like, from the New York Yankees.
Sure.
And it honestly reminded me of the 2015 Texas Rangers team that just made a comical amount of errors, brought the Blue Jays back into this one, but this was even worse because they were up by 5 runs, not 1 run. They were up by 5 runs. Let's start off that inning. I want to talk about it, man, because you had to lead off that inning in the top of the 5th. Enrique Hernandez, Kike, gets a single, leads it off. Great job. And then Tommy Edman hits a center field, like, lazy looping liner that Judge is just jogging in on, and pops out of his glove, drops it.
Yeah, Judge quite literally dropped the ball on that one. And, I mean, that was as sure of an out as you're going to see. It had... Like, it didn't even require him to run very far or very fast.
No,
you know, like,
no.
it was, we did a tiny little jog of a couple feet, and we were there. And then you could see his eyeballs, and you could see the focus, like, in the very final second of that play, when the ball was, like, just reaching his glove, it just completely dipped. I don't know, like, they were speculating afterwards, and I was speculating too. Like, it looked like his eyeballs went straight to the first base bag.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like, he's looking at the runner thinking, like, I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe I'm going to throw back there. Maybe he had a bit of a lead, or I don't know what he was thinking. Just he wasn't thinking about the play at hand.
Like, from my experience playing outfield, you catch the ball first, and then your next move is to look the runner back. It's like when you're playing infield and there's a guy in first and second, I'm a third baseman. I get the ball, or if there's just a guy in second and I'm a third baseman, I field the ball. The first instinct is field the ball, look the runner back to let him know, like, hey, I'm looking at you. Don't try to run over here because I'm going to throw it over there. But I'm looking at you. Like, don't get a big lead and then throw it back over to first base. So same thing with center field. You catch the ball. You look the runner. Hey, I know you're on base. I didn't forget about you. Throw it back into your cutoff for second baseman. But he made that second step before the first step, which was catch the effing baseball. You can see in slow motion, when the ball's coming down, he looks over.
His eyes
and
are
that's
going.
all it took.
Yeah, literally.
And Kevin Pillar on our broadcast here in Canada was saying it looked like the ball was knuckling. Very hard for us to see that on the broadcast, but for him, his eyes was knuckling. So if the ball's knuckling, you got to keep your eyes on it. And he's already looking away, and that's all it took to make that one miscue.
Yeah, literally. Like, we're talking the matter of, centimeters, inches here, folks. Like, this was such a minute thing, but, like, cost them dearly, right? And this wasn't the only miscue that you saw from the Yankees, not only in this game, but, in this series as a whole, right? Like, I think we can give an immense amount of credit to the LA Dodgers for the baseball that they played because it was at the highest quality. But I mean, like the miscues and the mistakes from the New York Yankees, they were major.
It kept going, right? Because then right after that play, Will Smith, he reached on a fielder's choice from Anthony Volpe. That was that play. He had first and second, nobody out. A ground ball to Anthony Volpe. He fields it to the right side. I mean, his momentum's going over to third, so to cut across your body and throw over the first, yes, Will Smith isn't like the best base runner. So like maybe you could make a heroic play, get the out at first, but then you're left with second and third and one out, and there's a sac fly opportunity. But you're up by 5, so maybe you sacrifice that. But he decides to go range to his right, throw it to third, get the force out, which I think he could have gotten if he actually would have made a proper throw. He bounces it to Jazz Chisholm, who like doesn't play third base and isn't used to scooping a ball off the bag in a one-hop situation. And it was a little bit of an in-between hop too. So like Jazz being like a second baseman and outfielder, like that's not really his primary thing to do there. And it cost him yet again. Then there was the bases loaded. And that's when everything started to fall apart.
Bases loaded, nobody out right here. And, you know, from a Yankee standpoint and Gerrit Cole, too, like, honestly, credit to Gerrit Cole for what he does next. Because I was shocked. Like, I thought that this guy would be totally rattled at this point. I sure as hell would be. Because, you know, you theoretically should be, you know, 2 outs here with only 1 guy on base. And, you know, clearly now the bases are loaded with nobody else. Then he gets, who was the...
It was Gavin Lux.
Gavin Lux and Ohtani.
Yeah, and Ohtani. Gavin Lux looked awful all game.
Gavin Lux did not look like he was there, so he was an immediate strikeout for Gerrit Cole. Ohtani comes up. I don't know how much the shoulder was impacting Ohtani or not in those final few games. It did look a little bit, but he still had some solid contact occasionally. He did inevitably strike out in that at-bat, though, and then it felt like, okay, from a Dodger standpoint, well, we just lost all momentum. You know, like we were given a couple gifts here. We had the bases loaded, nobody out. We just lost any potential for sac fly because we got 2 outs immediately off of the strikeout. Great job by Gerrit Cole to get that. And huge. Honestly, credit to Gerrit Cole the whole game. Like, I thought he was pitching very, very well. This next play, though,
it's all Gerrit's fault.
Like, it was just like a full mental miscue from him, and also, like, it's just a weird thing that happened.
Well, yeah, it's straight up, like, when I saw that play and I rewatched it this morning, all I could think about was my, like, house league coach screaming at me if I was on the pitching mound saying, "Get over there!" Like, if I'm not running immediately, like, I'm hearing the voices of my, that's why your coaches yell at you, so that they can ingrain it into your memory. Get the over there!
Yeah.
Like, seriously. Like, that's your first instinct. A ball hits the left side of the pitcher. You got to start darting towards that bag. And Gerrit Cole, little squibbler off of the bat of Mookie Betts to a deep playing Anthony Rizzo, and he's running, like, at Mookie Betts or towards the dugout.
Well, okay, here's the thing, because I also just rewatched that play, and I noticed immediately this is the weird. Like, I think he misjudged where that ball was going to end up, because immediately he starts running and then he just stops. Yeah. Like, he starts going and then he stops, and I think I'm trying to speculate for him right now. I think he misjudged that it was closer to the first, like Rizzo was closer to the first base bag, like he could easily, like Rizzo could easily run it there, and it was like that was just going to be an easy play for him. I mean, it was still a big mistake here, but just a complete misjudgment from Gerrit Cole there, because he starts running, and then it's almost like his controller dies, and he just slows down, and he's like pointing over to the first base as if he wants Rizzo to go.
I think it was clear. It's like he thought like, oh, like in his brain he's like, someone else has got to do this.
Rizzo's got this.
Someone else got to do this. But no, like, dude, like, your job is to go no matter what. Even if he's right next to the bag. I've seen plays where, you know, Vladdy, like I'm watching the Jays, Vladdy's right next to the bag, but the pitcher is like meeting him at the bag. That's it's just routine. It's like if I'm a wide receiver, I run my route.
Sure.
You know, even though I'm not getting the ball, like I just run my route because I need to go there just in case. You never know. Like the play could break down. So he didn't do that. And that was a mental lapse. And that was the start of the end for the New York Yankees, because then that scored the first run of the game for the Dodgers. Freddie Freeman, you don't want to put the MVP up at the plate here. Drives in 2 runs with a single. Teoscar Hernandez, who looked dead all series, came alive at the right spot, doubled, scored 2 more, game tied. And then from there on, you had a little bit of back and forth from both sides, but inevitably the Dodgers came up on top, and they won it with two sac flies after that. Just some good, solid baseball.
Yeah, some great baseball by the LA Dodgers. There were so many base runners in this game, too, that like either did score or didn't score. I mean, it's still a high-scoring affair. 7-6 was the final score here. But that 5th inning right there, like that's going to be the one that goes down as, kind of that big swing moment. I can see it right here on Baseball Savant. I got the game up. I hate how you can't scroll over and it'll give you the actual percentage at that moment in time.
Ooh, I think I've got them. Yeah, go ahead.
It's pretty damn close to being, 99 or 95% for the New York Yankees, and then that inning happens and it immediately goes back to 50-50. Then the Yankees actually claw their way back in here because they do take a lead a couple innings later. But the LA Dodgers are just they're relentless, man. They're relentless, and they pounce on your mistakes. We said it earlier when they were down 3-0. We said the Yankees cannot make any single mistake. You got to play perfect. That's not what happened in this game. There was too many mistakes.
Yeah, I got the exact percentage here in the bottom of the third after Giancarlo Stanton hit a home run. It was 93.9%.
Right,
and it was okay, we're chilling.
Yeah.
Then after the fifth inning. Obviously, they jump back up. LA's 48.1%, so it was pretty shut down. One more guy actually I want to mention as a great performer here is Blake Treinen.
Yeah, dude.
2 1/3 innings pitched. He pitched a total of where's Treinen? 42 pitches, and he hadn't pitched for 3 days, which is why he was able to go so deep. But he was literally their last. I don't want to have any disrespect for Daniel Hudson or Walker Buehler because Walker Buehler did get the save, but their last reliable bullpen arm that they had, because they literally had Walker Buehler out of nowhere, unexpectedly. Dave Roberts sends him to the bullpen mid-game saying, hey, you got to get warmed up. You could be going into this one, because that's all they had left. And that was a big story coming into this series, was that LA Dodgers bullpen has been pitching so dang much.
Yeah.
And it was starting, you saw after a 3-game series, I call it a 3-game series because they're in New York, They started to fall apart a bit, and their arms were hurting, and they were asked to pitch multiple innings, especially when you had a bullpen day the day before, and then you had Walker Buehler, or Flaherty, only go 1 1/3. If I were to give an MVP for a section of the Dodgers team, the lineup's phenomenal, but that bullpen just went above and beyond all postseason. And, who would have thought that a team would win the World Series with 2.5 starters. I say half because Flaherty was barely here. That was incredible, and also half because Walker Buehler ended up closing the final game.
Yeah,
but that's just incredible that they managed to scrap this World Series together.
I look at the postseason as a whole right here. Blake Treinen, he led the Dodgers in strikeouts. Right, and that's over
crazy.
Top of the starting pitchers, right?
Yeah.
He had significantly less innings than Flaherty. Flaherty pitched 22 innings, believe it or not, over the course of the entire postseason.
Yeah.
But Blake Treinen, as a bullpen guy, he pitched 12.1 innings, racked up 18 strikeouts at an ERA of 2.19. Across the board, this guy was shut down when they needed him to be, and he was a workhorse for those LA Dodgers. So 100%, man. There's so many different people that you can look at and go, okay, you were a major contributing factor right here. I think that Blake Treinen, you can go away happy. You can be all right, I did win this ring, because there's obviously some guys on here where you're Max Muncy, what the fuck were you doing this postseason, man?
Right.
You still won it, and you still contributed and everything like that.
For sure.
But, Treinen, man, credit to you, dude, for doing what you did. You were across the board, just helping this team win consistently.
Yeah, Max Muncy had a weird one, because I remember walking into the series, he had 1,000 OPS, but he was batting 200, and then just did not show up for the World Series at all.
No.
And you know what? Everyone had their moments, too, right? Teoscar Hernandez in the NLDS against the Padres, he was popping off.
Right.
He was looking like the MVP of that team at that moment. Betts was just great throughout. Obviously, Freeman showed up in the World Series.
That's the thing, because Freeman was a ghost.
Freeman was a ghost
right
in the
up
first 2
until
series.
the World Series,
Yeah.
right? He had an OPS of 400 something walking in to the World Series. We were almost counting him as a non-factor because we thought the injury was a serious thing for him. I guess he just pumped the drugs, and that moment is clearly never too big for Captain Clutch. Freddie Freeman is your World Series MVP, and it is very, very well deserved, guys. Across the board, Freeman, how many home runs? 5 home runs.
So he hit 4 in a row.
4 in a row
in this series, but
right.
6 if you count it back to when he was with Atlanta.
Right.
So 6 World Series games in a row. But for this, that's technically the home run record that a lot of people are talking about right now, was consecutive World Series game home runs. But 4 in a row in this series, 4 homers in this series, 12 RBIs in 5 games.
That's ridiculous.
Stupid clutch good. Like score. I think he mistaken if I'm not wrong. Scored an RBI in every single game in this postseason.
I mean, that seems like that would happen, right? And I mean, and yesterday too, right? 2 outs. You had runners on the corners, I believe, at that moment when he came up.
I think bases loaded because that was the Betts squibbler, and then he came up after that.
Right.
So everyone kind of ran around the bases.
Right. Okay, yeah. Because then what did he do then?
He hit just a liner up the middle single. 2 runs came in, and then it was runners at the corners. For Teoscar.
But it just felt like no moment was too big for Freeman. Like if there was ever a situation where somebody could be cashed in, he was doing it, Like there was just no mistakes made at all in those 4 or 5 games, by Freddie Freeman. So shout out to the Canadian boy, man. Like I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy that he got that World Series MVP. I want to talk a little bit about just that Yankees game played as a whole because I got a crazy stat line right here. Shout out to Stats, folks. This is going to blow your mind. The Yankees are the only MLB team to, I love it when it starts like that, blow a 5-run plus lead, allow 5+ unearned runs, commit 3+ errors, commit catcher's interference, commit a balk, all in the same game, regular season or postseason, since earned runs became an official stat in both leagues in 1913. No one has played a more undisciplined, a more blow-up, a more disappointing game than the New York Yankees did last night. Like, that just goes to show how much everyone, and it wasn't just Judge making the mistake or Cole making the lapse or, Volpe making the bad throw. We also saw it later in the game. Luke Weaver throwing
the mental lapse
what
of
are you
doing? 3 pickoffs. It didn't count for anything, but still the 3 pickoffs. And the third one wasn't even it looked like he was just trying to step off and buy him time to decide his pitch, but then he realized, oh wait a minute, I that's a new rule that happened 2 years ago.
Exactly. It felt like legitimately every single player right there, especially after the Dodgers started to get back into the game, but it just felt like all of them weren't present and weren't playing good, strong, disciplined baseball. Maybe the only guy that was actually 100% there, and this is why he's going to get a bag and a half. It felt like Juan Soto was just to him this was just another ball game, and he was doing what Juan Soto does. Finished the World Series with I think an OPS over 1.1 or something like that. His postseason was crazy. He is the guy. Had the New York Yankees potentially gone on to win the World Series, could have been him that ended up hosting the World Series MVP just for what he did in that series so far and the postseason as a whole. But the rest of the Yankees team, every single one of them, I mean, it just felt like you weren't fully there. Even we saw another play too, and this didn't come back to bite them, but the announcers were like, that's risky. There was a fly ball caught in center field, and Jazz Chisholm Jr. was at first base.
Oh, I remember that.
And then he decided to tag up, and this was a RBI too. This was an RBI. It was a sac fly RBI, and he decided to run to second base, and it was inches away from being the difference between being out of that inning and not scoring a run. Or him getting to second. And again, he did make it. It didn't come around to hurt them, but everyone was like, what are you doing?
Don't do that. And because that was in the 6th inning when that was the go-ahead run. So it was dude, let's just guarantee the go-ahead run. Let's not play for a big inning here like we could, but we just need one. And that was, and Stanton too was looking on both. And
he was like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
And know how bad it is? Remember that one play right at the end of Gerrit Cole's outing? I can't remember if it was the 6th or 7th, but it was a fly ball right between Soto and Judge in shallow right field. And Judge was going in on it, but then Soto's screaming, no, it's mine. And then Gerrit Cole in the replay puts his hands on his head oh my God. Any other pitcher in any other moment would just think, okay, they got it.
It's of course.
It's that bad right now for the Yankees.
It just felt like they were all out of sorts, and I know that feeling. I've had that feeling before. You can't even really it's you just need to step away for a second, but you can't because you're in it and you got to do this right now. But they were just they were all out of sorts. Whereas for the LA Dodgers, no moment was too big, and even when they were down 5 runs, they were still just clawing their way back into it. And ultimately, I do truly believe that the best team ended up winning this thing.
Absolutely, man. They're the most rounded team, the most versatile team. And one more note before we get off the Yankees here. This has got to hurt. You got your former stars, Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter, slamming the Yankees.
Yeah,
after.
I saw that.
They literally, this is their quotes right here. Derek Jeter said, "I don't know if I've ever seen quite an inning like this, especially in a World Series or a postseason game." And then Alex Rodriguez says, this is the bigger one, "This is one of the greatest meltdowns that I've ever seen in 40 years. And that says a lot, you know, in 40 years of him being around baseball. This is one of the worst, and it just sucks that it happened at the absolute worst time. Because if they win this game, you don't need me to say it, but you go to L.A., tons of teams have been down 2 runs or 2 games in a series.
L.A. was down 2 games. I mean, technically earlier, right, where they were down. To the Padres,
in the
right?
LDS against Padres, and you know, I thought like, oh, the Padres got this, and they easily can come back.
Exactly,
2 good games.
You know, if you were to win this game, it is a different series, right? You're just down 3-2. You know,
yeah,
like
that's it. That's totally
to go to a game 7. Somebody's gonna have to be down 3-2.
Exactly,
you know?
right. You were tied. You could just like forget the past. You could say, oh, we were even, and then they won the last one, but okay, well we got momentum. Let's go get it. Like it's just a mentality thing at that point. You know, rather than thinking you have to climb up this big hill, but they had to win and they fumbled it. And if I'm a Yankee fan right now, man, God, I'm lost.
Well, it's got to be really, really bad. Now, the one thing I do want to be very clear about here is, I mean, you were already down 3-0, so maybe even if you go on to win this game, does it change anything? Can you go on to win 2 more in LA?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you're given a better chance, obviously, than where we're at right now. But it is a really tough way to end the season if you're a New York Yankees fan, especially considering some of your biggest stars might not be in pinstripes for very much longer. We're going to talk about Juan Soto in a second, but the first one that I want to bring up here is Gerrit Cole, who I think throughout the postseason and throughout the end of this final season was 100% back to Gerrit Cole. I know that he had that mental lapse right there, but like across the board, you look at the no earned runs. They should have been out of that inning. Yeah. Several guys ago because of the errors that he had there. Like he was great yesterday, and he was great throughout the postseason. He was great ever since he came back from the injury. And word on the street is that he is going to be opting out of his contract with the New York Yankees. Right. They're going to be in a really interesting situation right now, especially if they lose Juan Soto, because they got to ask themselves, like, do we want to keep this guy? Like, are we doing that, or are we going to let him walk to free agency and try to get somebody else younger in here and bring some more life in? What are your thoughts on all that?
Talking about Gerrit Cole.
Talking about Gerrit Cole. That's right.
I think they got to keep him. I mean, like if you watch this postseason, he was your guy. You know, and you have a team that you want, and the Yankees being the Yankees, they're always going to want to go to the postseason. They're always going to want to pay up for their guy. And like, with Gerrit Cole's contract, you know, I think you said it's like $180 million. If you think you get over $180 million, which I think Gerrit Cole, anybody would pay him over $180 million because he's got so much longevity left in him at his age 33. Yeah, I mean, I think you do whatever it takes. And yeah, it sucks that it's happening at the wrong time because you're also trying to get Juan Soto, and you're also dealing with this thing where apparently you want to go under $300 million. I don't really see why. It's not like that's a luxury tax. You get penalized for it. Like you just got to keep spending. I think if I'm the Yankees, you got to do whatever it takes to get back because you were there. You were there for the first time in 15 years. You had the guys. You get Cole back. You do whatever it takes to get Juan Soto back. I'm not worried about like retooling, rebuilding because I got to capitalize on this Judge window too, right? You got him until beyond 2031. It doesn't even have the columns left on Baseball Reference here for how long they got Aaron Judge till. So you got to capitalize while you have him on your team right now. So yeah, that's my opinion. You do whatever it takes, man.
I do tend to agree with you, man. I'm just taking a look at these New York Yankees, their payroll right now, and what does their contract situation look like. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't seem to find it right now, but is Gleyber Torres a free agent as well?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
That's another thing too, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, Gleyber Torres isn't. Well, I wouldn't say that he's like a key staple here. But he was also guy. He was batting leadoff, right? Yeah. Like I don't think that your team's gonna like completely flounder if you lose Gleyber Torres. That is somebody that's replaceable.
Right.
But he was also a key starter for you for the last couple of years and was leading off for you in the World Series. So like let's not forget that is also an impactful player as well. And then of course the big one being Juan Soto. Now, Juan Soto came out after this ball game, and of course, I mean, it does suck for him in a sense that, like, all of the questions were about the free agency.
Immediately after.
And I imagine, like, Juan Soto's super cool, so, like, he'll just, he'll answer, no moment's too big for Juan Soto, not even the media, he can just handle this no problem. But it does, I do feel for him because obviously you're probably reeling about the loss that you just had. However, they were asking him about free agency, about his thoughts on that, and this is not verbatim. This is not what he said word for word, but effectively it was. Actually, I have it word for word right here. I don't know what the teams that are going to come after me. Definitely, I'll be open to this and every single team. I don't have any doors closed. I'm going to be available for all 30 teams. So, Colorado Rockies, it is your lucky day. The window is open. Go out and get them.
Listen, we always knew, and, well, we didn't always knew, but in the last month or so, it's kind of coming out like Juan Soto just wants the bag, guys. He turned down $440 million. You know what I mean? He doesn't really have any loyalty. Like, he won a World Series with the Washington Nationals. Yes, they were bad at the time when they traded him, but, like, if he was really about loyalty, like, I'm staying with my team that brought me up. I won a World Series. I'm going to be the cornerstone of this. I'm going to be I'm going to have legacy here in Washington. He doesn't care, man. I mean, again, I don't want to speak for him, but clearly, it's who wants to pay me the most, I'm going to you. And that is it will be the Yankees in that conversation. It will be the Mets, and it will be the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah. Also, I do want to, like, I just want to come out and be like, that's not a bad thing. Like, I don't look at Juan Soto badly because, like, he is out there trying to get the bag. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, this is somebody who is really good at their job.
You've been gifted.
Yeah, like, you are really
skill.
good. And it, like, I for anybody that's listening to this right now, it's like, if you are really good as a lawyer or whatever
go to the best
it is,
agency.
I mean, you are going to charge the most money, right? Like, even if you're, taking cases that are like, like, oh, like, these are good and helpful cases or whatever, like, you're helping people who are in need, you're still going to fucking charge a lot of goddamn money.
Bro, like, speaking from my brother's perspective, not to throw him on the bus or anything, but, like, he does corporate tax law, and, like, I mean, from my perspective, it's, like, the shadiest law where it's, like, I'm going to help this company that makes billions save millions on taxes and pay nothing.
Right.
Which, like, from a societal standpoint, you'd be like, well, that's not fair. That's the way it goes. And he makes that's like the highest paid, lower position.
Right.
Because it's just like, but is it the most morally correct? If from other people's perspectives, if I'm maybe yes, maybe no, but it could look, frowned upon.
That's the thing. I mean, like, could he be doing more to help other people?
Yeah.
Sure.
Could he be an environmental lawyer?
Exactly,
or
right?
some shit like that, right?
But, ultimately, if you're really good at a thing, I don't think it's a necessarily a bad thing for you to be like, all right, well, pay me what I'm worth. It would be a bad thing if he didn't give 100% effort, but I do think that Juan Soto, because he's just such an innate competitor, if you sign him, like, he is now going to be here playing his heart out every single game. Like, that's what he's going to do for you. So, again, like, credit to him for getting what is going to be a crazy contract. I mean, probably not as much as Shohei Ohtani, but, like, it's going to be right there, man. And, of course, everybody, after hearing, like, he's going to be available to all 30 teams, everyone, on Twitter speculating, where is this guy going to go? Does feel like the top three contenders are the New York Yankees, the LA Dodgers, and, of course, those New York Mets. But from a Yankee standpoint, either one of those. Like, I can't think of a worse scenario for a Yankees fan if, one,
you lose both.
You lose. So you lose in the World Series to the Dodgers, and then they end up being the team to sign him. Or alternatively, you lose in the World Series, and he goes to your neighbor, the New York Mets.
Yeah.
Like, those are actually the two worst fucking options for you if you're a New York Yankees fan. You got to retain this guy, and if you don't retain him, you better pray to God that he heads over to Pittsburgh or something.
Dude, and I gotta say this, man. Like, I was looking at all the comments. Like, we actually posted something on our social media, Bad for Baseball, about the Dodgers being in on Soto, and there were so many comments being like, "We don't want him.
That's a
We'd rather have
ridiculous
Teoscar
thing.
Hernandez." I love Teoscar Hernandez, but of course
Not
you want
close.
Juan
Not
Soto.
close.
He did better than Mookie Betts all postseason. Like, he's that reliable. And then I'm looking here on this SNY Mets post, when he was quoted about that, about being asked whether if you want to go to the Mets or not, and a bunch of people are saying, no, get lost, get out of town. It's like, are you dumb? Like, put your pride aside for a moment. I mean, that's the only thing I can really chalk it up to is a pride thing. Like, we don't want this Yankee player. We don't want this guy. And get him out of here. Are you kidding me?
In fact,
I would give up. Dude, I would, like, for personally me, like Gerrit Cole, I've never been a fan of personally because it's like my Blue Jay fandom comes in. But if he's a Toronto Blue Jay, I'm all over.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. All's forgiven. Take me to the World Series, like, Gerrit Cole.
That's the thing. You can understand that, like, clearly this guy is a special talent.
Yeah.
He is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. He is still elite. The same thing applies to Juan Soto. And I want to correct you a little bit here because you were talking about how he was, one of the better players in the World Series. I look at I'm looking at the postseason stats right now. And it's very difficult to, like, I guess, qualify all these players because, like, you have Michael Harris right here with a 1.75 OPS. Well, he played in 2 games.
NLCS plus. Let's go from there.
Like, I don't think that's super fair. But when you're looking at the guys who actually did play the most, Juan Soto was the best player in this postseason.
There you go.
Out of every single, that is the World Series MVP in Freddie. That is Mookie Betts. That is Shohei Ohtani. That is Stanton and Juan Soto was the best player in the postseason this year. He did not win the World Series, but he was a major factor for them to get there. I mean, the guy batted .327, getting on base. Dude, he got on base at a rate of .469.
Nice.
Like, he was legitimately almost on base half of the time right now. His slugging was .633. He had an OPS of 1.102. You're telling me that you don't want... I know that you just won the World Series and, like, you're feeling all high and mighty and everything like that. But, guys, like, This is a dude.
This is a superstar.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what he played for, what he did in his past. I mean, he's a great guy. Go get him, right? And yeah, like, it'd be horrible for the Yankees to lose him. And then on the other note of that, like, to make it more dramatic, like, if they did somehow let Gerrit Cole walk, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, that feels like to me if he opts out, he's intending to come right back. I mean, we all know the story of him growing up as a Yankees fan as a kid. Like, this is what he wanted. Like, he doesn't want anything else. He just wants a little bit more of a payday, right? But if he's not going to get it, then maybe he does go. So if that happens, I think it's a very unlikely situation they lose both. But if it does, Yankees are screwed because they're not only that, like, that's their 2 superstars. They have a 3-headed monster. That's 2 of the 3-headed monster. But they're also losing, like you said, Gleyber Torres, Alex Verdugo they traded for, losing 3 bullpen guys who we saw, Canely, Holmes, and then Tim Hill. Like, that's 3 guys they utilize quite a lot in this postseason. That's a big chunk of their bullpen. Now what do you do?
Yeah.
Now what do you do? Oh, we're getting a little flash from our thing. I think it died.
I think it honestly, like, really the big thing here is how serious are they about getting under that $300 million mark? Because you think about all these different players, and, like, you do need to retain a lot of them, right? I just had the thought right there, when you're talking about the whole Gerrit Cole stuff. I wonder if there's a situation where if they're really focused on getting under that $300 million mark, well, maybe Gerrit Cole says, I'm going to opt out of my thing, and they decide not to pick it up so that they can try to re-sign Juan Soto. Like, maybe if they're really trying to save money in penny pinch right now and, like, take all that money that they were already paying Gerrit Cole and reinvest in Juan Soto. Just a thought right there. I don't know what the fuck your pitching would look like at that point.
I guess they got depth, I guess. Like, they still got Stroman. They're going to have Schmidt. Nestor Cortez, maybe he could bounce back and be good. You got Luis Heel, that's looking like a young, promising guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Rodon's so shaky.
That's
maybe
the
they
thing.
Go sign someone else this offseason.
I would look at that pitching rotation
a lot
vastly differently if you didn't have, the Cy Young and Gerrit Cole up there type
Dude,
thing.
Like,
now, I understand you do need Juan Soto back, but, like, there might be sacrifices here that the Yankees have to make that, from a fan base standpoint, you do not want to have to make because, like, you are accustomed to a level of play right now, and, losing a Torres and a Soto or a Cole or whatever, like, that's going to sting. So it really does come down to how serious they are about getting under that $300 million mark. But if you want to win a World Series, I think you got to stay up there.
Yeah, you got to. I'd advise you to. I mean, not like you need my advice because if I'm a fan base, I'm hungry. I'm hungry for more, man. This is and this was embarrassing. You got to redeem yourself next season, especially with Aaron Judge still on the team.
Yeah, 100%, man. Now, from an LA Dodgers standpoint, obviously they're coming off of the World Series win. They are, I would argue, just at the finish line of what has been maybe the one of the greatest seasons from a fan base standpoint in sports. Maybe ever, because you think about, go back to last year, right? You had them Didn't lose. It wasn't good. They lost out in the, where were they?
I thought it was the DS.
Was that the DS?
Early,
it was disappointing. It was definitely disappointing, and Dodgers fans were upset, and they were calling for Dave Roberts and everything like that. But then they go out in the offseason, and they do everything, and they bring in Ohtani, and they bring in Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and they trade for Glasnow. They make all of these different moves. It was just insane, and from a fan base standpoint, you're like, holy shit, like, this is it, which could be the moment, and it actually was. You watch Shohei Ohtani go on a historic 50-50 campaign in his first year. He is going to win the MVP. You watch your team then have this dramatic, come from behind win against the Padres, your division rivals, to knock them out, and then, of course, Freddie Freeman goes on to win the World Series MVP. I cannot imagine how high you must be if you were an LA Dodgers fan. And it might not be over, everybody, because they could be just as active this offseason.
They could, man. I mean, they have a decent amount of guys coming off the book. Nothing too crazy. I mean, they do have Teoscar Hernandez, but we all kind of accepted the reality. He was a one-year perfect kind of guy. Maybe they go sign him back. I mean,
and the
fan favorite.
This is the crazy part, right? Like, it's not even that big of a deal for them.
That's like I could sign this guy for $100 million for 4 years and chill.
Right. It's just like, because their team is so deep, and like you look at some of those other guys, they're like, for any other organization, losing somebody like Teoscar Hernandez is a fucking dagger.
Big blow.
But to the Dodgers, I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's fine.
They'll go just sign like Jock Peterson, or they'll go get Anthony Santander or something like that. They'll make it work. Everyone wants to go play for them. We'll get that in a little bit later.
Yes.
But yeah, they got him coming up. But Jordan Lyles, I forgot, was even on this team. Jesus, he's been out for a while. Jack Flaherty, obviously they traded for, but we knew that he was going to be gone at the end of this year. Kevin Kiermaier, we knew that he traded for, he's going to be gone. But whatever. The big one here is Blake Treinen. Walker Buehler's going to be gone. It's another starting pitcher. So you got 2 starting pitchers that started for you in this World Series and postseason run. They're going to be gone. Kike's gone, but we knew that. And Daniel Hudson. So the pitching staff we always knew is going to be a problem. They're going to be left with Yamamoto, but they are going to gain Shohei Ohtani.
That's kind of important.
That's crazy, right? They still got Clayton Kershaw on that team, and then we forget, right? Like, they still had a few other pitchers that are younger that could still actually do certain things. Remember they had so many injuries, like Tony Gonsolin has been injured.
Yeah.
Dustin May's been injured.
Too,
Glasnow's going to come back, right? So let's say like Shohei, Yamamoto, and Glasnow is your rock right there.
That's a pretty good 3.
Pretty good 3, and then you go out and you could sign some. If they went out and they did this, which we've got rumors right now that Corbin Burnes wants to become an LA Dodger, because not from anybody else but Corbin Burnes.
Yeah.
If he goes in and gets added to that team, he will be a gross four-headed monster. He made a tweet, quote tweeting the LA Dodgers winning the World Series, and he had the 3 eyeball emojis.
Yeah.
And when he was going over to the Orioles, when they announced they got traded, he did the same kind of reaction with the eyeball emojis. So everyone now is quote tweeting it, being like, oh my God, if Corbin Burnes goes to the Dodgers, we're all screwed. Because, that would be gross. Shohei, Corbin Burnes, Yamamoto, and then you've got Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, man. And this isn't the only free agent out there that's going to be looking at this team and going, damn, I want to play there. Like, if you are somebody of quality, right? Like, if you're somebody of quality, that's going to be your top destination.
Absolutely.
You want to be a part of what they have going on there, because it works, and that you aren't necessarily going to have to carry this team like you've carried others, right? Corbin Burnes, for a long period of time, right, he was on those Milwaukee Brewers. They didn't have a payroll, right? They just didn't. Now, he's on the Baltimore Orioles right now, or I guess he was on the Baltimore Orioles. And that is a good team. I like, if he went back there and re-signed, I think the Baltimore Orioles are going to still be a very good squad for years to come. But they're not the LA Dodgers, right? The LA Dodgers are going to go out every single season and sign whoever the fuck they want, because everybody wants to go there. Now, from a baseball standpoint, if you're a Dodgers fan, you're loving life right now, because you may have just entered into what could be a Shohei Ohtani contract length level of dynasty. That's a real thing, okay? Like, as long as that contract is alive, you might be in dynasty mode. From everyone else's standpoint, if you are a fan of the Giants or the Mets, or actually any other team, it does suck, because your best player, if he is on an expiring contract or something like that, you're gonna want to go to the Dodgers first. I think about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from a Toronto Blue Jays standpoint, right? he makes it to free agency. If he makes it to free agent, I know they got Freddie Freeman over there, but the Dodgers are a team that don't give a fuck. And they would make it work somehow.
I don't even know. Maybe you throw him over at third base, and you're like, yeah, because like they Shohei DHing. That's the one thing that like clocks him up there.
Throw him over at third base, or maybe at that point, Freddie Freeman's getting older, and I don't know. I'm not sure, man. Whatever it is, they would. That's the thing. They would find a way because they're the LA Dodgers.
Vladdy, our new second baseman.
They're exactly. Like that's just gonna be what it is. Or Ohtani's gonna play outfield now because he's just the greatest player of all time, and we're just gonna make him do that.
He'll pitch and play outfield.
Yes.
He'll run over and make the catches.
Exactly. It'll be incredible, right? He'll
what can you imagine?
Or he'll pitch and he'll be the second baseman. So he'll throw the pitch and then he'll just immediately dart back to second base bag and like he'll be in the play, It'll be great, dude.
Oh my god.
No, but seriously, like the LA Dodgers, like anyone with any quality or value on the free agency market, you cannot count these guys out regardless of what their contract situation looks like. They just won a World Series. They just had probably the biggest revenue year in their history. I don't know that for a fact, but I would probably wager that it is
with Ohtani, of course.
With Ohtani and Yamamoto and Mookie and all of these names, right? Like these are the big guys that we want to watch, we want to support, we want to root for. I could 100% see Corbin Burnes in Dodger blue when it's all said and done.
Yep. That's one I'm actually probably going to predict. I mean, like, it's one of those things where Corbin Burnes wants it and the Dodgers want it. Actually, Dodgers need it. Do they? Because they clearly didn't need it.
They don't need anything. Here's the thing. They don't need anything, right? Like, if they didn't sign back a single free agent, they would still walk into next season and win 90 games.
Favorites. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a real thing.
The reason why I joke they don't need it is because they didn't actually need a rotation this postseason, which is still nuts. But you still got to go get some bullpen guys. They're going to be all over it this offseason. They're going to not stop spending because, you're right, the money's going to keep coming. You got to spend money to make money over here in L.A., Whereas other teams, like, we spend money and we lose money because we can't win ball games. But they're doing it. They're actually doing it. Speaking of which, it's a good transition now. Free agency has officially begun. It actually begun at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're about 1 hour and 20 minutes into the official free agency. They're not open yet. You can't actually go and sign any free agents, but all the players who are on expiring contracts, you are now officially a free agent. It's weird how it's like, okay.
Can they talk? Can they start talking now?
Let me read off here. We got from CBS Sports. So, as of 9 a.m. today, they are free agent. It is important to note that free agents cannot sign with new teams just yet. They have to wait 5 days for that. The first 5 days of the offseason are exclusive negotiating period during which free agents can only talk money with their current team. Okay. Or recent team is what they put it because they're not on the team anymore. So technically, Juan Soto can only talk to the Yankees for 5 days.
All right.
This is where you got to pitch everything right now. You got to pitch everything.
It doesn't matter, man. Unless they offer him $1 billion, I don't think he's gonna.
No, I hear what
that's the thing. You're already here at this point. You got 5 days to go. You just put up the most historic postseasons that we've seen in a while. He's gonna go. Everyone's going to free agency, right? And just to hear what other teams have to say.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only guy who in recent history that they brought up here that made a signing in this period was Edwin Diaz on the Mets, where I guess he wanted to be a Met. That's one of those things, right? He knew he wanted to be a Met. They offered him the bag right out front. And he's like, okay, $102 million, thanks.
Right.
I'll take that money,
but
right?
for somebody who's saying I'm open to all 30 teams, probably not.
You're not, right? And then this coming Monday, guys, at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's the deadline to make a qualifying offer. So this is where the Yankees will make a qualifying offer for Juan Soto because I don't know what the average is this year. It's $21.05 million.
Wow.
Okay, so they're gonna offer it. He'll decline it. And then they're going to get some sort of draft compensation pick.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually significantly less than he made this year in our 3 or 4, whatever he was in, right? So, he's obviously going to decline that, and they'll get a compensation pick and whatever. And then on November 4th, after all that is done, that is when free agent officially begins. So at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that is when you could see, I don't know if it's going to happen right away, but you could see people start flying off the board. And just a reminder, there is quite a few people, right? We talked about Burnes, we talked about Soto, but you did have Flaherty, who got roughed up, by the way, in that outing right there. You do have Teoscar Hernandez, also played in that game, very, very good. You did have Gleyber Torres also playing in that game, pretty solid player. That's just the people on the World Series rosters, right? Yeah. There's so many other free agents that are going to be available here, Anthony Santander and Alex Bregman. The list goes on and on.
Yeah, even a big one here, Pete Alonso. Speaking of like a New York team, Pete Alonso's going to be available, right? Like that's
the Yankees should go out and get Pete Alonso.
Yeah, they should actually. That's a great. Just move over and plug and play.
Well, we keep hearing these freaking rumors about how they want to trade for Guerrero because they don't have a first baseman. Yeah, which is fine. Like, okay, if you're not in on Rizzo anymore, all right, fair enough. Mm-hmm. I mean, Pete Alonso feels like somebody that you can just lock up. Now, I will say, like, again, it all comes down to how much money you want to spend. If you're going to be spending big dollars, I think it should go to Juan Soto. Yeah. But, I
guess maybe it's a bridge we cross when we get there.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's going to be weird. Again, like, we as Blue Jay fans know from experience, like, the whole offseason is so entertaining because it's all about timing. Like if you start seeing guys go off the board over here, but they're like a tier down of what you really want, which we saw was Shohei Ohtani last year, then you're left without an option afterwards. So like if Ohtani doesn't go to you, you have lost the offseason. So same thing with the Yankees. If you're going for Juan Soto and he takes till, let's say, January because it's Scott Boras Corporation, but then there goes Pete Alonso, and there goes other pitchers off the board, and other guys you could have brought in. Ooh, now you're left in a scary position, and then you might end up like the Jays and win 74 effing games. So you got to be careful with your timing. You got to play it really good, right?
No, I agree with you, man. So yeah, November 4th is when it all begins. You do have some GM meetings directly after that. This isn't the winter meetings. It's very similar to the winter meetings. They're just going to talk about a bunch of shit. Maybe a trade happens. Maybe it doesn't. Then you get the awards announced. So you're going to hear about your MVPs, your Cy Youngs, your Silver Sluggers, all that stuff. And then the big news, there's a couple things that happen in between there. However, the biggest stuff happens at the winter meetings, which is December 8th to 11th. That's when you're going to get your draft lottery. That's when I assume free agency should be in like full swing. At that point, you've had a month where teams can kind of pitch their guys. They can call up all the guys that they want. You've probably heard a couple offers if you're Juan Soto, whoever it is. I would imagine that at that point, that's when you're going to really start seeing names fly off the board.
That's what happened with Ohtani last year, right? Like,
exactly, right? Same time, Ohtani left, and, right around then as well, you started to see a bunch of other guys going. And, of course, at that moment as well, that's when some trades are going to happen too. So that's when things are really, really going to kick off, and then you can kind of start building up your team, whether it be through trade or free agency. And, of course, you'll get the draft lottery too to figure out where it is that you're going to be picking. And then it's effectively, dead off season until we get to pitchers and catchers reported later in February.
Yeah, there's some arbitration stuff that happens. Like there's a arbitration deadline, like a non-tender deadline in November, and then it'll pick up in January. So you might see some guys go there. Very, very rarely do people go there unless you're an incompetent organization, like the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah. And you want your stars to hate you. But shockingly, Vladdy doesn't, and you're lucky for that because a lot of other teams would. AKA in the past, Marcus Stroman hated the Jays for doing that. But regardless, that's going to be happening then. And that's the whole offseason, guys. So we're going to be covering it all here on Bad for Baseball. But, Nick, before we sign off, thoughts just overall on this 2024 year, of baseball. I think this was a very entertaining year. Obviously, from a Jays perspective, it sucked. But for just what happened in baseball overall, 50-50. Aaron Judge smacking bombs. Juan Soto looking good. What an amazing postseason we had.
Yeah, and not even for think about the New York Mets as a whole, their whole
great
thing.
Story there.
Detroit Tigers, whole thing, right? There was a lot of good storylines here. We got to see the worst team in MLB history, right? So there was a lot of interesting stuff that transpired this season. Overall, I think it's a success. Best team probably won it all in the LA Dodgers, and we'll see what they do in the free agency market.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We're gonna be posting a lot on this channel, doing our podcast, making shorts, cutting clips. We're going to be talking about the free agency and the offseason trade rumors and all that here on Bad for Baseball. So if you're watching on our YouTube channel, hit that like button, subscribe to Bad for Baseball, hit that post notification bell button so you know when we're posting next.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers.